Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is now the second day of our conference and the second session. And yesterday we focused more on the research organizations, and today it's as excellence as seen from the researcher. The program is here, as you see. We start with a keynote lecture, and then there are the presentations coming, and then later, meantime, we have the coffee break discussion, and after that we also have a coffee in the next room here. And now I'm very pleased to call the moderator for this session. It's Andres Koppel from the Estonian Research Council. Andres.
Thank you. Good morning. This is a great pleasure and honor to be the moderator of the last day of our conference. Actually, this task is very easy for me since Professor Engelbrecht has organized it so well, and the scene has been set that my part is extremely moderate as a moderator. And I'm pleased to give the floor to Professor Risto Näätänen, who is one of the most prominent scientists not only in Estonia but also in Finland. Professor Näätänen is a professor of cognitive psychology in Tartu University, and he's also a full professor in Helsinki. So I think he is a very right person to speak about excellence to discuss the excellence from the viewpoint of scientists. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for these kind words. I'm really grateful for this highly appreciated invitation by Professor Engelbrecht, Vice President of the Academy, and by the Academy itself. I'm going to talk about scientific excellence. And so how to achieve and how to maintain it. Okay, so my talk will include these items. First, I discuss what are significant contributions to science. Secondly, how to evaluate scientific excellence. And third, how to become top-level scientist, which depends on personal properties and also on the system. And the fourth, how to stay at the top, scientific him or herself, and then what kind of environment is needed. Then a few words how Nordforsk describes the research career. And then, important question, why is the United States superior to European Union in science, even though we have maybe almost double population? Then, of course, one explanation comes here, brain drain, how to stop it. 8, how to develop excellence from a mediocre starting point. And then, if we have time, then I will go into the scientific process itself and discuss how the new ideas and inventions originate in the brain. And then finally, how to prepare for an idea or theoretical solution or some other cognitive top performance. There are certain issues here. Okay, significant contributions to science. Of course, there can be original findings, so that we find a new phenomenon or new relationship, and publish this usually in high-level journals so that it will be read by very many people. Secondly, what we can do is a theoretical contribution. We can explain on the basis of a large set of data what these papers together mean in terms of interpretation. So we can develop theories or some interpretations or reinterpret something which has already been interpreted by others. Then what is extremely important now are these critical reviews or empirical studies. We are drowning with these original data papers, and we cannot follow all of them, not even in a small, even in a narrow field. Can you hear me well? Okay, good. Okay, so these reviews are extremely important nowadays. They become more and more so. And we can develop new classifications and systematizations, order data or information in a new way. And then we can do methodological contributions. We can develop techniques, devices, and combinations of techniques. For instance, EEG combined with transcranial magnetic stimulation is a new, very popular trend now. Then we can develop new research paradigms, and we can develop new ways to analyze data. Okay, so, sorry. Okay, so a few words about how to evaluate scientific excellence. First, referees or evaluators first usually look articles. How many and where you have published in international refereed journals. And they also think what your contribution might be to these papers. For instance, if a doctoral student is the first among the list of authors, then his or her merit is regarded higher than if she is something like in the fifth position. And then the second prestigious position, usually after the first, is the last. And this is usually the person who is a kind of guarantee or leader of a group. He is usually professor or principal investigator. Okay, so journals are often estimated on the basis of journal impact factor, which reflects some kind of average of how many times an article is cited in this journal during a certain period of time. Then you can write international books. Okay, then citations. What they usually look is the total number of citations in your lifetime, or citation in a certain period of time, let's say during the last 5 years. And then there is this age index, which is a kind of quantitative, qualitative combination of these citations, in the sense, for instance, age index 100, which is pretty high, means that you have published, or your name is at least in 100 articles, of which each has been cited at least 100 times. And this is very high. So, okay. Then there is peer evaluation, so that, for instance, foreign referees read the articles of applicants for a professorship and evaluate on the basis of these articles who should be the number one in rank order. And now, because this number of papers is becoming so large that many times universities ask the applicants just list, say, 5 or 10 or 20 papers, and only these are sent to the referees. So it's very important to have some very good papers. I was evaluator for Stockholm professor of psychology some years ago, and one morning when I went to work, there was guard over house bringing the in this what is this got together 3 packages like this, and I was supposed to read all these. So it was hopeless. But it's no more possible. Okay. Then, of course, the evaluators can look how if you have been invited to give keynote addresses in major scientific congresses. Then, if you have got any acknowledgements elsewhere, honorary doctorates or memberships in foreign academies of science. And then what they now tend to look also is how much money you have been able to collect. This is an index of how your research is evaluated. Then if you are mentioned in textbooks and your figures are reproduced in textbooks, that's a good thing. Then if you have been a leader in a center of excellence or in international research consortia, that's also a merit. Or if you have been a main organizer of some important congresses or graduate doctoral training programs. Okay, here a few words about this, about the limitations of citation analysis. It's just journals only, because this is the most accessible form of citation information. And of course it depends on the year of publication. If there is a great article 1 year ago, there has not been enough time to collect citations. And what is very important, the number of citations strongly depends on the volume of the field. So if you are in cancer research, then you are bound to get a large number of citations because there are so many papers appearing whole time. If you are an archaeologist, it's very hard to get many citations because there are few journals. Okay, but these citations can be used in a useful way. So if you make so that if comparisons are made within field, so that we take into account just the workers in the same field and see how he or she is placed in rank order within a field. And then secondly, we can relate the number of citations to the general level of citations in the field. So there is some kind of volume index here. And then you can also use citations in a qualitative measure in the sense that you collect a sample of citations and see if they say something good or bad on your work. So it can also be in this way used qualitatively. Okay, now let's go to how to become top-level scientist. There are many properties which are good, but I added this because one girl got very upset because she did not have all the all the pre-qualifications. So not all are needed. Okay, so what we need? Of course, we need inborn talent. That's more easy to say now. When I became professor in the end of, sometime in the 70s, and I gave this kind of talk, then a student delegation came to me very upset, said that they were these Stalinistic students. We had very strong Stalinistic left-wing student movement, and they came to tell me that I talk nonsense because all these differences in performance depend on social classes and social injustice which exists there. So, okay, but anyway, I still believe there is something here. Okay, then second, what we need, of course, very much determination. We want to make it, and we have to have some strong motivation here. But it's important that this motivation is not just to becoming great and to get acknowledgement, but it's that it's better if you have genuine interest in your field or even passion, so that you really think these phenomena with which you are working. Then ability to feel strong curiosity and inspiration. That's very, very important. Ability to experience deep satisfaction in work, what is called flow by Senta. You get into such kind of magic state for a while where everything seems to be going, you become much more clever than you usually are. And your hand, when you write, your hand finally goes by itself somehow. So you can get these kinds of feelings with certain kinds of under certain kinds of conditions, so you need much time and peace and much more. Okay, then what is good to have is, of course, good education and training, guidance, mentors, very important. And what is also important in science is that you have good health and good psychical and physical condition. Because it's heavy work in long term. And then good communication, presentation skills, these are of course something you can train. You have to learn to communicate your ideas. And then, this is very important, strategic eye and problem sense, that you have some kind of eye to see where I should now go, what should be found, what is the next big fish there. Okay, very important. You have to maintain whole time high criteria. Don't spend any time for mediocre work or mediocre publications. But here you have to be cautious not to fall into a trap of perfectionism. So that you have to think that you work certain time for an article, but then it must be stopped sometimes. Even though you still think that you can little bit improve, but you are asymptotically approaching where you can go, so sometimes it doesn't anymore pay off to work longer. Okay, this is very important, self-discipline. Many scientists have this very strong self-discipline to work hard, but they lack self-discipline to rest when the system needs rest. So you need self-discipline even for pulling yourself away from a work where you feel that you must continue. So you burn yourself out. It's like a marathon runner who starts running as fast as possible the first kilometer. He will collapse. Okay. You have to think that you have to go like this for decades. You have to have a different lifestyle which permits decades of work. Okay, ability to work hard and to recover. Some people have problems to recover after hard work. So you have to develop a routine. You can go to sauna, or you can go to run or swim. You can have one drink, whatever. For me, it's like cold shower is the fastest way to forget. And then you have to have persistence to continue and to finish. Sometimes it's boring. And you will meet frustrations, and you have to develop some kind of tolerance against these frustrations, so that you have to be prepared to be frustrated every now and then. Things don't go as you think often. Next is ability to minimize distraction. So you need good time management, ability to plan your calendar so that it's realistic and distraction gets minimum. Distraction means often that when you are writing something, you have to do something in between which breaks the process down. So you have to plan it so that no such urgent duties or as few as possible come during your intensive work period. Then field independence means that many times you have to follow your own ideas even though the environment does not support you or does not think this is going anywhere. And then you, of course, need some self-confidence. And as one philosopher in our country, Pekka Himanen, emphasizes, self-confidence and feeling of worthiness is a very important background factor in good scientific career. And it's related to this next point. So fear of failure. We of course have fear of failures, but it should not act as an inhibiting agent. So if you cannot take challenge to go to talk in some important congress because of fear of failure, then you already failed. So it's better to accept these challenges. And then group work. You must develop some suitability for group work and develop an ability to make scientific friendships. And you have to develop your leadership properties in group work. This is more for more senior researchers. Many senior researchers are so full of themselves that they somehow suppress the younger people and whole time beating them, showing how I'm better than they are. This should not be done. Okay. Many groups have been destroyed by these kinds of leaders. Okay, then what we need from environment or system? Of course, sufficient funding and sufficient time. This is absolutely necessary. Adequate infrastructure and facilities, of course, depending on the field. In some fields, they are not so critical. In some fields, just good libraries is enough. But in most, and especially in lab fields, you are really dependent on the facilities. And this infrastructure and facilities doesn't just mean that there are equipment. There must be staff which is able to handle these equipment flexibly. And then there should be a high-level research group in most fields. You cannot do alone in lab work, usually. And then it would be very good to have critical mass in the department or in the in the university where you can talk about issues, you get feedback. So it's essential to have feedback circuits where you can develop your ideas. And these are, of course, local and they can be international. And congresses are very good here that you get feedback. And then you need collaborative links, local, domestic, and foreign. And then many systems forget that scientists need encouragement and rewards if they do well. It creates confidence and your output is improved. Okay, what we also need, supportive human relationships. So if we are in the process of divorce, then work is not going very well. What is also needed is effective early enough recruitment system. So it means that the system must recognize that here is a potential talent, and this must occur at an early enough phase until the person loses interest or goes elsewhere. So, but of course it's risk to invest in some people with not very much demonstration or performance, but this risk must be accepted. Usually, if you are right in 70% of cases, then you are doing very well. But anyway, you have to invest in in young people. And you can evaluate them on the basis of time and opportunity a person has had until now. If a female with 4 children is evaluated, then one has to think that she has not had that time and possibilities as males of the same age. And we need evaluators which are top-level experienced scientists. And this is very hard because these people are very, very busy and hard to get them to spend time enough in these evaluations. But anyway, the system must respond rapidly with feedback or with reward if there is some good performance. And especially important are these acknowledgements which come from elsewhere. And if you think who should get a grant or a research position for 3 years, then my advice is not just to look at research plans, but really see what he or she has contributed during the last 2 years. So it shows you can make good prognosis on the basis of a performance during the last 2 years, what the next years will be. Many people can write very well and such research plans which are appealing to a reader who is not especially in the field and thinks, okay, this might be great. But it's much better to see what has happened during the last 2 years. And I think that the present evaluation procedures need to be considered and dramatically improved, because we whole time lose good people because our evaluation system is failing. Evaluation must always be comparative. It's not a good way that what we have in universities, that we have a lecturer and then we ask whether he or she should be promoted to assistant professor, and just ask evaluators to think whether this person should be promoted or not. This is nonsense. Because usually they almost always support this. But if there is a competition, if there is a comparison, then it means something. So evaluation must always be comparative, not against some abstract criteria. Okay, then how to stay at the top if you have got there? Of course, continuous updating of knowledge and skills you need to do. And you have to actively maintain your psychic and physical condition. You should not neglect rest and recreation. You have to fight to avoid burnout. Then you have to focus on strategic planning and the maintenance of focus in your research and work life. This stresses time management. And then you have actively maintain your collaborative links at the different levels, and scientific friendships. They are becoming more and more important, because when you concentrate on your work, you finally lose friendships elsewhere. You cannot anymore meet them, you don't have time. But so you can compensate this partially by having scientific friendships, and they can be your so-called scientific enemies even. This has happened to me, that I thought that the first time when I saw some people whom I have criticized in literature, that they would be somehow angry, but finally they became my good friends. Okay, and then we need, of course, this frustration tolerance. Science is full of frustrations. There are, of course, something else too, fortunately, but frustrations are a common experience. Then we have to develop ability to educate or train younger scientists, and ability to maintain some of the best students in in our group. This is very typical in US, but you have the so-called two senior models. So that it's not just one is boss and the others are somehow associated. It's more often that there are two seniors who, or more senior than younger senior, who collaborate together and take and share the responsibility. And this is a very sustainable model of working. This younger senior can be your best student. And then what helps is to be able to attract good students and colleagues, and of course supportive human relationships. And what is needed from the system? The system must have the ability to respond very fast if there is some good sign. For instance, citations are suddenly going up very, very highly. Good publications are appearing and prices are obtained. The system must respond the system must react, especially to acknowledgments from elsewhere. And what is important, of course, is when the system considers whether a person should be given more years to continue, it's better that there is peer evaluation rather than just research plan. Research plan is not a very important thing. And here I take the example of Lasse Virén, who won 1972, won 5,000 and 10,000 meter gold medals in Olympics. And then, of course, in 72 fall, people started to think whether this money should rotate now to new incomers. But fortunately, they gave this man money again to Lasse Virén so that he could continue. So he won 2 more gold medals in 76. So this just highlights the point that if somebody is doing now extremely well at world top, then it would be very stupid to pull off the money support from this person. It's better to support a person who is at the top as heavily as possible, as long as he or she is there on the top. Okay, so our evaluation procedures need to be reconsidered and dramatically improved. We had some kind of very, very unfortunate initiative in Finland recently that research funding should be divided first to the universities, and then the universities themselves within the universities decide who should get the money. This is totally wrong. It's just friends and other than scientific criteria which then are winning. So it's important that there is heavy competition between different applicants. So our research money in Finland, for instance, should go to the academy, and they should declare money open for competition rather than the money first going to the universities. Okay, now we come to what Nordforsk thinks. So this is a research association of Nordic countries. So they think that first when scientists are young, they need some seed money to show if they can do something. So some trial is needed. Then their level of excellence is improving, and hopefully they have good supervisors. Hopefully they get creative ideas. Then their citations are increasing, and then they will get finally all kinds of prizes. And level of risk is going now down because they already made it. Okay. Okay, now, why is United States superior to the European Union in science? First, very simple fact is that investments are at very different levels. So in United States, universities in general are supported much better. It doesn't mean all universities, but the top-level universities. So here are little, this is already long ago, but for instance, Harvard got 460 million euros as private donations, and it had funds of 23 billion euros, and student number was so small, 6,000. Oxford got no donations and had much smaller funds and many more students. And this is top university in Europe. So our funding level is not comparable to US. And what seems still to be true that donations to science can be made tax-free. So if we make donation to science in Finland, then we pay 50% out of it first to tax. Okay, and then top universities provide prerequisites for science. For instance, this professor-student ratio is much better on average. So, and the specialization of professors is such that each professor is responsible only for a narrow field. So when I went as a young student in '65, I went to UCLA, Los Angeles, I was amazed to see the catalogue of professors, teachers, 66, and who should cover whole psychology. And I came from Helsinki University, which had 2 professors who should cover just the same area. So these 66 could each be very good specialists in their special fields. So they have, this is much better, this specialization issue in US. And then there is very heavy competition between universities. And when they can buy the best stuff. In Finland you cannot really buy anybody because of the salaries are pretty much the same. There are little additions. But in US, a top professor can have a salary of 2-3 times that of a mediocre professor. So if a mediocre professor costs $40,000 per year, top-level professor can get $150,000. So it's somehow motivating. And here is maybe the most important factor. They can attract best students from all over the world. So brain drain from Europe and elsewhere, because they offer very attractive opportunities for young students, and especially young students from poor countries are attracted by these possibilities. So US universities now have an extremely large number of very promising Chinese and Korean, Malaysian students, Vietnamese students, and from Europe, especially from Eastern Europe, they attract very, very many talents. And these opportunities seem to be like giving away, but actually it's very good system for themselves, because they attract best students here, and then they can monitor how they perform within a year and make offers only to those who really perform well. So this is the way how they recruit the best people. Okay. High incentives means that if you do a little better, you get much more. Somehow your salary is increased. Maybe committee meets every year to see who deserves salary promotion. And then they have no age discrimination. So people who are in good condition at the age of 70 can well continue if they are still in their top. Then the grant system is pretty generous. Not so easy often to get, but when you get it, it's pretty good. Then journals, scientific journals are often United States dominated. Their editors in chief are often US people. And of course they have language advantage. And this is what we don't often think. They have known to work very hard. They tend to work harder than in Europe, in European universities. They have shorter holidays well, of course you have to be cautious here not to work too hard, but in general I think most of European universities work in a pretty lazy way in many cases. Okay, but how do we stop this brain drain? We have to develop some kind of return support to get people back. They have to have something where to come. We should develop postdoc funding system. This is really failing in Europe in most places. We lose these good postdocs. I have trained almost 10 high-level postdocs, and US, Canada and Britain have bought them away. I could not have money to gain from them. Then what we don't have really is long-term or permanent research positions, or only very few. And then there should be salary increase because our alternatives are more attractive. And then we should develop this incentive system. Okay, if we are in a mediocre starting point position in science, so how can we get up? So we could recruit a top-level expert from elsewhere who takes the responsibility, one person who is really a key person in the field. Then we need to increase funding to appropriate level and send young promising students to leading departments and labs elsewhere, but with the agreement that they come back. And then we have to create a progress evaluation system so that everybody knows how well I'm now doing. And some kind of feedback or reward system which must be explicit. How much time can I take? Who is 16 minutes. Aha, okay, so I have time. Okay, so now I come to the second part, how to get these ideas in science. So we can develop, we have a kind of mind map for scientists. So this is our own field. These are different scientific entities, certain theories or data sets or whatever. And they are connected with vectors which show their closeness to each other. And then there is adjacent field which has its own scientific units, scientific information entities. And you can see here that here are explicit links between this and this in the mind, between this and this. But then there are some subliminal seminal activation. And these are the potential sources or ideas that if these links somehow get activated so that you get some activation here and some here at the same time, then they can make a new idea. Okay, so, I show some mind map of one of my interest somehow. So here we have a node, we call this node schizophrenia. This is one of my interests. We can have different aspects in schizophrenia-related knowledge. We know that they get hospitalized at certain phase. There is cognitive and functional decline. we need some drugs, they get auditory hallucinations. What happens is Hessel gyrus volume is going down, so it's becoming empty in certain places. And then there are certain frontal changes which we can measure with magnetic resonance imaging. And then I have developed this movement negativity measure which indexes this cognitive and functional decline and frontal changes. Then we have related disorders, bipolar disease, manic depressive. All this group means here that in this mind map we locate certain research groups. Like here is one group, here is one group. Here is autism spectrum, which is related to schizophrenia. Here is one group studying the relationship between schizophrenia and autism. Then schizophrenia has determinants, genetic determinants and environmental determinants. Okay, so mind map of a scientist consists of field-specific and related information in latent but well-organized form. So it's a kind of self-organizing map. And this develops further as a function of different cognitive events, reading, scientific discussions, and so on. So you can understand, you get more and more categories within a certain class. And these nodes are selectively activated and differentiated as a function of suitable stimulation. And the activation state of each node is enhanced by its previous activations, but this activation decays in time. So these nodes are central units of scientific information. They consist of field-specific and related information in a latent but well-organized form, correspond to major concepts, issues, and research subfields. They develop as a function of different cognitive events, reading and discussions, and they are self-organized into a net structure according to their internode semantic distances, which are modified by experience. And these nodes are selectively activated and differentiated as a function of suitable stimulation. They have microstructures representing more detailed information, classifications, determinants, indices, scientists, and groups. One example was shown by my schizophrenia slide. And activation of this state of each node is enhanced by its previous activation, but it decays in time. But with progress, this system becomes more differentiated. If a scientist sees new classes existing, and progress of research work of scientific himself, herself, and with new related relevant information. And during writing process, you start to realize, okay, this is not that homogeneous class, you have to make some distinctions. Okay, so these nodes are connected, which are also through a network of specific subliminal associations, which are potential ideas. And they are first activated often in the form of an intuition. You feel that something is here. Okay, now we come almost to the stop. So origin of ideas is often a novel association or an analogy applied to a novel context. For instance, activation of some of the existing subliminal associations, which is often preceded by an intuition. So here are prerequisites and triggering events for activation of subliminal associations. So we have to have field activation high. And then new related or potentially related nodes get into picture. They somehow may cause real organization. And you can, if you understand the problem better than previously, then there is some reorganization in the map. And then what we need, specific key stimulation. So it can be some comment or question or something which triggers activation of new idea. And then we can develop, to help getting ideas, we can develop so-called search attractors, which means that we have explicit questions in mind. If you suddenly realize that this is the question, when whatever you read is immediately related to this question. And then, okay, background factors, of course. health and well-being should be good. Stressors take down this activation and distraction, and fatigue and sleepiness and drugs. Nicotine sometimes help you focus your mind and improves. It's strange enough, but cannot be avoided. Okay, this is typical professor life. You activate your map, you read, try to work, so it's kind of work up, productive period after you got this activation high, and then you have to go to other duties to check one doctoral thesis or so. So you lose this everything and goes down, and then you have to start again. It's an analogy to paper machine, so that if paper machine gets into working condition, you need maybe 1 week until it's high. And if a strike comes, then everything goes down, and then you have to start, wait for 1 week. Okay, approaching the end, how to prepare for an idea. So elaborate the problem or question as far as possible. This is the first step towards solution. So you try to clarify, crystallize what the question is, and then you consider what might be needed. So you have to read something, you have to understand some genetics, for instance, which somehow belongs to the solution. Do it first before the proper writing process, so that you have all the modular elements solved. And then you have to secure an uninterrupted period of time. So do all duties away beforehand. For instance, 2 weeks I write our theory, so I do everything away before starting. And then you have to make sure that you have important feedback sources available. So, for instance, if you need some person to consult at certain phase, be sure that he or she will be present when you need this consultation a week later. And then you decide deadlines when you have to be in midway and so on. And then what is nice, you can decide your reward. If I get this done, then I'm allowed to go to have a nice dinner in this restaurant. And thereafter, you have done all these preparations, then you raise the relevant part, map activation as rapidly as high as possible, avoiding breaks, and try to choose the most useful search attractors, so regions of interest, so where you have to, what is the key information you need. And then you maximize chances of encountering a key stimulus while the relevant map activation is at the top. So you need this key stimulus, and then you work very hard, but avoid exhaustion. And so the solution is here that you have high map activation, and then you get key stimulus, then idea might come. Thank you.
Yeah, you criticized the Finnish system so that government is giving money to universities rather than giving it all to academy, where universities would compete for it. Did I understand this right?
Yeah.
Okay, and my question is this different than in other countries, and can this be a factor explaining Finland's mediocre performance in the international comparisons?
Yeah, very, very important that you ask this. I think that most of our way of dividing money is somehow inbred. We have our favorites. We have for instance, if we say it in a so-called kind of nice way that we have to think what is the profile of a department. Actually, it means that we can draw in certain criteria by which we can have second best before the first best in science. So my suggestion is that first we have to think scientific quality as such, rather than thinking teaching merits and other things which can be acquired later. Because if you take these extra criteria, then you finally get just the applicant you want. And I can see this in Finland happening in most places. So scientific excellence cannot be replaced by some good performance in some other aspect. It must be first scientific excellence. If this is missing, it doesn't help to be a good teacher. Because much of the teaching is just teaching how to think and do research. Okay.
More questions, please?
You said that you have to look to the last 2 years of performance of a scientist, and then you show a mind map. How do you use this mind map for evaluation?
Well, this mind map cannot really be used for evaluation. It's something by which a person can evaluate his or her career. This was developed by, this mind map system was developed by Matti Järvilä from the University of Oulu, and he used this in our Finnish-Russian winter schools, where we tried to get students to realize where they might be good. So it's a way of a tool for development and understanding how to get toward ideas, but you cannot evaluate persons by using mind map.
More questions, please? If there are no questions from the audience, let me ask myself. You have been working both in Finland and Estonia for a while now. How do you think, or what's your impression about the Estonian research system and also from the perspective of young scientists? Do you think that we will be able to compete with, if you showed that in Finland it's difficult to compete with the US, what's your opinion about the Estonian situation? Do we have hope?
Thanks for this question. I think there are very many promising students, for instance, I have seen in the University of Tartu, but the problem is the funding. If there is some attractive alternative in US, then they might go there, or in commercial life. They want to have a BMW with which to drive or impress their girlfriends. So the ability to keep these best brains is not optimal in Estonia. What we need is to develop a high priority emergency funding system by which we intervene. We need that one very good person is now being invited to United States or to Germany or somewhere. We should give this kind of counter offer. They did, strange enough, they did the same in Finland when Estonia or Tartu University tried to invite one professor, one very good scientist from Jyväskylä, Finland, to work in Tartu. Then at the last moment, cancellation came from this person, and he said that he got an offer from his own university to become a full professor. So this kind of intervention system should be developed. For instance, Helsinki is not so flexible. Jyväskylä can beat Helsinki because they are more flexible in strategic moments. So I highly recommend this kind of high priority emergency money, which can be used when something catastrophic is just happening. Well, if we lose one good talent, then it means often the loss of whole field, the quality of the whole field in many cases. So we should not let this happen.
Just the answer to your question about our relations to Finland, I would like to remind you that actually the centers of excellence that were proposed by the Science Competence Council, it was the beginning of the century. This was exactly the experience from Finland, and this first program was actually funded by the state budget exactly in the same way as it was done by the Academy of Finland. And we actually copied very much all these sort of official documents for that time. Now it is a little bit different, but the idea came exactly from Finland. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you, Professor Natanen. I think we have reached in our schedule to the next speaker. Thank you once more. Very